It was a beautiful evening at the grand castle where Cinderella was preparing for the royal ball. The shimmering lights from the chandeliers sparkled against the stone walls, and her fairy godmother was just finishing up the final touches on her gown. Cinderella's heart fluttered with excitement. Tonight would be magical, the night she'd finally meet the prince. Her fairy godmother, a kindly, twinkling figure with sparkling wings, waved her wand to make the last bit of magic happen. "There you go, my dear. You look stunning," she said, admiring Cinderella's gown, which shimmered in hues of blue and silver, catching the light like a sky full of stars. Just as Cinderella twirled to admire her transformation, the fairy godmother's face suddenly shifted to one of concern. "Wait, something's wrong," she muttered, her wand sparking uncontrollably. Before Cinderella could ask what had happened, there was a bright flash of light, blinding her for a moment. She felt the ground beneath her feet disappear. The next thing Cinderella knew, she was plummeting through the air, surrounded by swirling lights and mist. She squeezed her eyes shut as the sensation of falling consumed her, and the world around her blurred. It felt like an eternity before she finally landed, softly, almost as if the ground had been prepared for her. When she opened her eyes, she found herself in a completely unfamiliar place. The city around her was full of towering metal structures, with bright lights flashing from billboards and cars speeding by without horses pulling them. The sound of honking horns and bustling crowds filled the air. She looked down at her gown, which was still sparkling with the magic of the fairy godmother's spell, and realized that this was not the castle, nor was it anywhere she had ever seen. Cinderella stood up, confused and bewildered, trying to make sense of her new surroundings. She had never seen such large, shiny carriages or heard such strange sounds. "Where am I?" she whispered to herself. Just then, she heard a soft whoosh above her, and before she knew it, a figure landed in front of her in a blur of red and blue. It was a man, or rather, a hero, with a mask covering his face and a suit that looked like it belonged to a spider. "Whoa, hey there," the stranger said, sounding surprised. "You okay? You look like you've just dropped in from, well, the sky." Cinderella took a step back, still in shock. Who are you?" The masked figure smiled. "Spider-Man, at your service." "And you are?" I'm Cinderella," she said hesitantly, still not quite sure if she had imagined what had just happened. "I don't know how I ended up here." "Well, Cinderella, welcome to New York City. Looks like you're a bit lost, huh?" Spider-Man chuckled, taking a cautious step closer. "No worries, I've got you covered. First things first, let's get you somewhere safe." Cinderella nodded, still trying to wrap her mind around what was happening. "Yes, please. I don't understand what's going on. One moment I was at a ball, and now I'm here." Spider-Man, noticing how disoriented Cinderella was, quickly scooped her up in his arms and swung them high into the air. "Let's take a look at the big picture, Cinderella. I'm sure we can figure this out if we get a bird's eye view." As they soared through the sky, Cinderella gasped in awe. The city below was vast, with streets filled with people and glowing lights. The towering buildings looked nothing like the castle she had seen, and the noise of the city was overwhelming. But at the same time, she couldn't deny how incredible the view was. "Wow," Cinderella whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "This place, it's like nothing I've ever seen." "I know," right? It's pretty amazing, Spider-Man said with a grin. But we've got bigger problems than a sightseeing tour. There's a portal I've been keeping an eye on. It's been flickering up around here, and I think you might be a part of it. A portal? Cinderella repeated, her voice tinged with confusion. What do you mean? Look down there, Spider-Man said, pointing to a corner of the city where a swirling, glowing blue portal was opening in the middle of a busy street. The air around it rippled with strange energy, and the people below scattered in panic. That portal leads to, well, who knows where, Spider-Man explained. But it's definitely not normal. And that's not all. I've been dealing with some weird magical stuff lately, and I have a feeling it's connected to whatever brought you here. Before Cinderella could respond, there was another flash of light from the portal, and from it emerged a group of strange creatures, mice, pumpkins, and even a few enchanted royal guards. They moved with jerky, unnatural motions as if they were under some kind of spell. What in the world? Cinderella gasped. It looks like Loki's handiwork, Spider-Man muttered. I'll explain later. For now, we need to stop these guys before they cause any real damage. With that, Spider-Man sprang into action, shooting webs to contain the magical creatures. Cinderella, although startled, felt a strange surge of courage. The magic in her was still strong, even here, in this strange world. She twirled her hand, and a burst of magic radiated from her palm, knocking the enchanted guards off their feet. Not bad, Cinderella, Spider-Man called as he swung past, webs flying in all directions. Looks like you've got some magic of your own. Cinderella smiled, feeling empowered by the unexpected turn of events. I may not understand this world, but I know how to help. The magical creatures continued to appear, but with their combined efforts, Cinderella and Spider-Man worked together to trap them in a magical bubble and send them back through the portal. However, just as they thought they had won, the portal flickered again, and a dark figure stepped through, Loki, the trickster god. Loki's menacing laugh echoed through the city streets as he stepped out of the portal, his eyes glowing with malice. Well, if it isn't Spider-Man and a princess from another world. How delightful. Cinderella looked up at the villain with a mixture of fear and determination. She had heard stories of Loki from her fairy godmother, but never in her wildest dreams did she think she would meet him face to face. I'm afraid your little adventure is about to come to an end, Loki continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You see, I've been pulling the strings from behind the scenes, and now I've found a way to merge both our worlds into one. And you, he pointed at Cinderella with his scepter, are going to help me do it. Cinderella stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. You can't do this. We won't let you. Spider-Man shot a web at Loki, but the trickster god merely flicked his wrist, sending the web flying off into the distance. You think you can stop me? I control magic. And soon, everything, your world and mine, will be under my rule. Loki raised his scepter, and the ground shook beneath their feet. The sky turned dark, and more portals began to open, releasing waves of enchanted creatures into the streets. Buildings began to crack, and the streets filled with a magical storm. We've got to stop him, now! Spider-Man shouted. But just as they were about to charge forward, Loki summoned a series of illusions, giant, menacing spiders that crawled toward them, their eyes glowing red. Cinderella's heart raced, but she didn't falter. With a flick of her wrist, she cast a protective spell, dispelling the illusions and clearing the path. "Nice trick," Spider-Man said with a grin. "But we need to get that scepter away from him." Cinderella nodded, ready to face the danger head-on. Together, they would need to outsmart Loki and stop him before his magic tore the city apart. Loki raised his scepter high, and a deep rumble echoed through the streets as more magical creatures poured out of the portals. The city around them seemed to warp and twist under his control. Cinderella and Spider-Man knew they had no time to waste. "We need to break his hold on this place," Spider-Man said, looking around at the chaos. "If we don't, this whole city could end up in another dimension." "I agree," Cinderella said, clutching her magic wand tightly. "But we need to find a way to stop that scepter." As Loki advanced, he threw blasts of magic at them. Spider-Man swung quickly, dodging the blasts with precision. Cinderella focused, and with a wave of her hand, she cast a barrier of shimmering light, deflecting Loki's magic. Loki sneered, but his expression faltered when he saw the unity between Cinderella and Spider-Man. "You're stronger than I expected," he growled. "But it won't be enough." With a snap of his fingers, he summoned illusions of themselves to confuse the heroes. But Cinderella's intuition was sharp. "Look for the real one," she called out, using her magic to dispel the illusions one by one. Spider-Man nodded, springing into action. He threw a web, pulling the scepter from Loki's grasp and swinging it high above the ground. Loki's eyes widened. Without his scepter, his magic weakened. "We have him," Cinderella exclaimed. But Loki wasn't done yet. With one last, furious cry, he summoned a wave of dark energy, pushing Cinderella and Spider-Man back. As Loki attempted to regain control, the ground trembled beneath them. The portals around the city grew larger, their light becoming more intense. "It's not over," Loki said, his voice full of fury. "This world is mine to command." Cinderella, still holding the scepter in her hand, closed her eyes and concentrated. With a deep breath, she summoned her magic, weaving her energy around the scepter and creating a brilliant, golden aura. "You've lost, Loki," Cinderella said, her voice steady. "The magic of this city doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the people." With one powerful wave, Cinderella used the scepter to close the portals, sending the creatures back into the dimensions from which they came. The city began to calm, the magic lifting from the streets. Loki, his power fading, vanished into the air with a screech of frustration. Spider-Man landed beside Cinderella, breathing a sigh of relief. "That was close," he said, offering a smile. "But you did it. You stopped him." Cinderella smiled back, her heart swelling with pride. "We did it together." With the city restored, Cinderella and Spider-Man stood atop a building, watching as the chaos of the battle slowly faded away. The streets were quieter now, and the people were beginning to return to their normal lives. "You know," Spider-Man said, "I think you'd make a great hero in this world. Maybe you could stick around and help out more often." Cinderella chuckled. "I think I have a lot to learn about this world first," she said. "But I'd love to come back and visit." Just then, her fairy godmother appeared in a swirl of light, looking relieved. "Oh, Cinderella, I'm so glad to see you safe. It seems I may have made a little miscalculation with my spell." Cinderella laughed. "It's all right, fairy godmother. I think I've had enough adventures for now." Spider-Man waved at Cinderella and her fairy godmother. "It was an honor fighting by your side, Cinderella. Maybe we'll cross paths again sometime." As Cinderella stepped into the swirling light with her fairy godmother, she felt a sense of peace. The adventure was over, but her heart was filled with new possibilities. Whatever came next, she knew she would be ready for it. And as the stars above began to twinkle, Cinderella and Spider-Man both knew that their worlds would always be connected by the magic of courage and friendship.